Number 3, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. His last season in review, he played in 76 games, 33 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists per game, 52% from the field, 38% from 3, and 90% from the line. That amounted to 64% in true shooting, 2.7 stocks per game. We talked about this in the last segment, but Shai is a very good defensive playmaker. He's got high IQ. He's got long arms. He can do a lot of damage in passing lanes and in help side situations at the rim as a defensive player. This was an award-heavy season for him. It was the rare regular season MVP and finals MVP for Shai. First team All-NBA selection and made the All-Star team. His play type data, Shai was extremely productive last year, fueled by his incredible scoring ability. His numbers passing out of pick and roll and ISO and post-up situations were fine, but that's not really his game. He didn't put up elite playmaking numbers out of action. His shooting numbers out of those situations were transcendently great. He was the only player in the league last year to shoot out of pick and roll at least 500 times and to make more than half of those shots. He was at 51%. And he, in the second place guy on that list, Darius Garland, again, minimum 500 reps, 47%. So 4% better than the rest of the pack in high volume pick and roll shooting. He was 35% on pull-up threes, which is good enough. That's 1.05 points per shot. But he shot 56% on twos out of pick and roll, fueled by deadly mid-range shooting and a floater that he hits about 49% of the time. He shot the best percentage on twos out of ball screens in the league by a wide margin. He was 2.5% better than the second place guy on that list, Damian Lillard. The data in his one-on-ones was every bit as impressive. He got 1.1 points per possession shooting out of ISO. That was second place behind Kevin Durant out of the 22 players who logged at least 200 shot attempts out of ISO. He got 1.08 points per possession out of the post as a shooter, hitting 54% of his shots there on 88 reps. That was 7th out of the 37 players to log at least 75 shot attempts out of the post. He's just deadly as a scorer. I find Shai's success as a scorer to be incredibly fascinating from like a basketball technique and skill development perspective. It all starts with the threat of the drive. Shai doesn't have an insanely quick first step, but he does have a quick first step, and he's got really long strides. So once he actually gets an angle and hits the gas, he can get past you quick. And he's a master of change of pace. He lulls you to sleep with relaxed dribbles before exploding forward. And you can't like play one side of him because he's got really good balance driving right and left. As a matter of fact, according to Synergy, he drove left just 21 more times all season than he did going right. And then lastly, he's one of the very best players in the league at chaining together counter moves. This is something we've talked about a lot on the show. He can dribble through contact really well. If you manage to beat him to the spot once or twice, he'll just smoothly transition into another forward attacking move, whether it's on a scissor dribble or a behind the back dribble. He's just going to keep going at you even if you beat him to the spot once or twice. This allowed Shai to generate a crazy amount of dribble penetration. According to NBA.com, Shai logged 1,567 drives last season. That was by far the most in the league. Second place on the list was Trae Young with 1,302. So 165 more drives than anyone else in the entire NBA. And then he finishes extremely well at the rim in traffic. On insane volume and on pretty high difficulty considering some of the spacing issues the Thunder had at times, Shai shot 60% on layups, not dunks, layups. Which again, for a guard, and at that volume and degree of difficulty, that's a super impressive number. That's the foundational piece, his ability to get to the basket. From there, Shai had two very useful counters to his dribble penetration. Deadly short-range shot making and the ability to grift his way to the line. Let's start with the short-range shot making. Shai shot 54% on twos inside of 17 feet, jump shots inside of 17 feet last year. He made 216 of them, which was the most in the league by a pretty wide margin. And only Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal had a higher percentage on those short twos on a minimum of 100 attempts. And again, as I always talk about, there's a ton of value in short range scoring because of the way it translates in physicality to the playoffs and in clutch situations. A lot of times those deeper jump shots, they're less likely to go in when everyone's tired, the whistle's being swallowed, things are super physical. You need something closer to the basket to be reliable in those situations, right? And what's interesting is if you look at Shai's efficiency numbers last year in the postseason, he experienced some substantial drop-offs in key areas. Like his rim finishing dropped by 6% overall, according to Synergy. His three-point shooting dropped by 9%. His overall true shooting percentage dropped by 7% relative to the regular season. But he was able to avoid the precipitous drop-offs that guys like James Harden have experienced in the past, especially in like big late series moments, because Shai had a part of his game that he was able to stabilize, and it was that short-range scoring piece. He hit 51.4% of his two-point jump shots inside of 17 feet. This is a big part of how he was able to maintain his status as a reliable playoff scorer night to night as he went through those 4 rounds, even if he wasn't quite as good as he was in the regular season. And it showed up in the clutch in particular. Shai was the only player in the playoff field last year to make at least 10 clutch shots on at least 50% shooting. He was 14 for 28 to be exact. But what's really fascinating to me is if you actually look back at every pivotal shot, you can say what you want about the Thunder. I'd argue they made it was more difficult than it should have been for them through that postseason run. It was the stuff that I talked about all season, their youth, their inexperience, their inconsistencies on offense, fueled by their youth. It manifested in those longer series against Denver and Indiana. But to Shai's credit, what iced those series? His short-range shot making. Obviously, in the Memphis series, in game 4, it was a deeper 2, but he hits a 2 that ices that series. Look at Denver, game 5. Late in the game, tied, gets Jamal Murray on a switch, hits a little 15-footer for an and one over the top. It was a lead-changing shot in that game. Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Literally one of the most pivotal shots in the entire playoff run. Indiana has a 1-point lead. He hits a short step-back jump shot along the left baseline after pushing off Aaron Nesmith. All of the most pivotal moments for Oklahoma City offensively in this playoff run swung on Shai's ability to get to close range jump shots and to hit them at a high percentage. And then the final counter to Shai's driving ability is the ability to get to the foul line. He just has every foul grifting trick in the book. The low gather, the arm grab, the pump fakes, the weird release angles, the flopping, the yelling. He's got it all. And by the way, the same exact thing is true about Luka. And Luka's every bit as bad. And again, as I always say, I don't blame the players for this stuff. I blame the league. If he didn't get rewarded with free throws, the other guys wouldn't do it. Shai got 8.8 free throw attempts per game last year. That was the second most in the NBA behind Giannis Antetokounmpo. All of that amounted to Shai being the best scorer in the league last year by a good margin. The playmaking piece with Shai is all about his frame of mind. Shai is wired as a scorer. And at many points during this playoff run, he hurt his team on offense by just coming out guns blazing as a shooter, kind of overdoing it and taking the rest of his team out of rhythm. But to his credit, and I talked about this in the playoff run, every single time the Thunder ended up in a do-or-die type of game, with the exception of game 4 of the finals. Game 4 of the finals was the one night where, like obviously he made a couple of plays late, but I thought that was the 0 assist game. I thought he did a really poor job managing it. Like his floor game was poor in that game. But in every other pivotal game in that playoff run, he came out and played a really good floor game, properly balancing his attacks and advantage creation, taking easy kick out reads when they were available, setting the table for his team to have a successful night on offense. Again, he is not a top tier playmaker in this league. He's never going to be that type of guy. But he was able to figure out the proper balance in the big spots the way he needed to. Now, it's just for him in the future about fighting his natural tendencies. I do expect him to get better at that each passing year. We talked about this after they won the title. That was why I viewed Oklahoma City as vulnerable, and they proved to be vulnerable as they were pushed to 7 twice. They're young. They struggle to replicate successes and minimize failures. But Shai, with each passing year, I expect him to get better at understanding the importance of his floor game on a night-to-night basis. That will be a bigger deal as they head into the future of this franchise, right? Like in the coming years, 3-4 years from now, and Shai's on his max, J-Dub's on his max, Chet's on his max, Oklahoma City won't be able to surround him with as much talent as they can right now. They're not going to be able to make offseason moves for Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein the way that they did last summer. The margin for error will be much smaller, and that's where Shai's development as a game manager will become a bigger deal than it was last year. I should also mention that Chet and J-Dub's development will play a role there as well, but there was a massive difference between Oklahoma City's half-court offense performance and wins and losses in the playoffs this year. They logged an 89.3 offensive rating in the half court in their losses and a 100.2 in their wins. And that often was tied to the job that Shai was doing, kind of managing the flow of these games. Bottom line, Shai's a top-tier superstar because he's an absolute S-tier scorer with reliable short-range shot making that makes him super dependable night to night and in clutch situations, more so than any other star in the NBA last year. And he's a good enough defensive playmaker as well as switch defender to be an above-average defender at his position in the NBA. He has his inconsistencies as a game manager and playmaker, but they're just what separates him from the two guys that I have above him. And to his credit, he was able to come through in those areas in big moments in this year's playoff run. For right now, I have Shai at number 3.